I was the one that signed Body Count and was the executive producer of the record. So you asked me if I was part of it, just look at the record. My name is right there, executive producer. So, I mean, I'll tell you the story of what happened with Body Count, which was basically we put the record out. It was kind of like a fun project for ICE. We sold about, I don't remember, about 100,000. So it was basically a break-even project for us, and the record was finished. It was over. It was coming back from the stores. It was, but it was not a failure. It was a break-even. It was good, and we all felt good about it. It was over. Time for ICE's next record. And lo and behold, some Republican politicians saw it as a way that they could use in Texas for fundraising, and it escalated. And suddenly we have the Vice President of the United States on TV denouncing the record, Quayle, and within a matter of a week, instead of records coming back to the company, orders just went through the roof, and we were suddenly selling a lot of records. And over the course of the next few weeks, a record that had topped out at 100,000 went gold. I mean, and my first reaction was literally to make a gold record for Dan Quayle, which I did. I made a gold record for Dan Quayle. Lenny Waronker was the president of Warner Brothers one day, and he walked into my office and he saw the gold record there. He said, "What is that?" And I said, "I'm going to send this to Dan Quayle." He said, "Could you wait till after the election, please, before you do that? Don't we have enough problems with these people now?" So I said, okay. But since they lost the election, there was no sense in sending it to them. So I eventually contributed it to People for the American Way, and we auctioned it off, and the money went to things that Dan Quayle would hate. But anyway, the whole issue with the Body Count record was basically the right trying to capitalize on the cultural issue to say that this is that Ice-T and Body Count were endorsing killing police, which they weren't. ICE was basically taking on the role of a reporter, reporting on what was going on in the streets. He was giving a very accurate report about the way black people in LA were feeling about police who had just beaten up Rodney King, and the Rodney King thing was just like one example of a whole pandemic of violence against black, especially young black men in Los Angeles by law enforcement authorities. So that was, and this was his take on it, and the right decided to use that as a way of, as a wedge issue that they could, in a hot button issue that they could beat up Democrats with.
Was the P.M.R.C. before or after that?
Or during it. I mean, the P.M.R.C. started just around that time, and then as the P.M.R.C. sort of died out, then that this horrible right-wing psycho got elected as a senator from Connecticut. I'm trying to remember his name. He's like a fascist. He should be a Republican, but he's actually a Democrat. Joe Lieberman. Oh, yeah. So Joe Lieberman was elected by cheating and by attacking a moderate Republican, Lowell Weicker, who was really, really good. And Lieberman went in there as a very, very right-wing Democrat, attacked Weicker from the right, and became the senator, and immediately took up the cudgel of censorship. That was his first big move. He's just as bad as they come. He was just a complete nightmare. I remember him getting into some battles with a lot of friends of mine. I mean, not just Ice-T, but also Jello Biafra was one of his targets. Of course, everyone remembers him viciously attacking Frank Zappa. In fact, some of that wound up on national TV. But this is just for a low-life piece of shit like Joe Lieberman. This kind of thing is just a fundraising opportunity. That's all it is. Just a way to make some money.
What do you think about Al Gore's wife? Her vocal process and shit?
I really think that Al Gore has gone through like an incredible change in life since the election was stolen from him in 2000. I think he's a different man in 2006 than he was in 2000, and certainly a different man than he was when he was a kid and fell in love and married Tipper Gore. And I don't know, you know, I only met her a couple of times. I was not in a position to make a realistic assessment of her because I was so full of hatred towards her. I almost didn't vote for Al Gore because the idea of making Tipper Gore the first lady was so anathema to me. But and then when he picked that horrible Joe Lieberman to be his vice president, I thought, oh, I mean, Tipper Gore he married when he was a kid. Maybe he was stoned or drunk when he married that bitch. But Joe Lieberman, he knew what he was doing. And I actually wrote a letter that got published in the LA Times about why I would not vote for Al Gore and why I was going to vote for Ralph Nader. But then as the election came closer, there were all these reports about the California results tightening up, and it looked like Bush could actually win in California. It totally was untrue, and Gore slaughtered him. But I didn't want to take any chances that something as horrible as Adolf Hitler. I mean, not Adolf Hitler. What's his name? Adolf Hitler was friends with his grandparents. Prescott Bush's grandson. What was his name? He's that little shithole. Oh, George Bush. So I didn't want to take any chance of George Bush becoming president and carrying on Hitler's tradition as he's done, as his family has done. So I did vote for Al Gore, even though it meant also pulling the lever for Tipper Gore to be first lady and for that horrible Joe Lieberman to be vice president.
Now, you had a little bit of a backlash on the Huffington report regarding Joe Lieberman. I think it was something like the senator said to retract the statements.
Well, I wouldn't call it a backlash. Actually, they made the senator made a very big mistake. He sent one of his I can't remember the guy's name, but someone who worked for him, some moron who works for him, who also writes for the Wall Street Journal, to say, tell Klein to either retract his statement or give me the facts, or I want the details. So this was like joy for me, because suddenly my little blog that didn't have very many people coming to it, suddenly I had this article on the Huffington Post where I was having more readers in a day than I had in any 3 months combined. And then Ariana is telling me, well, they want you to write another piece. I thought, wow, I mean, what an opportunity. So then I wrote all the details to back up the stuff, at which point Joe Lieberman was so horrified that he completely shut up and never said anything about me or downward tyranny again. Because I think the last thing he wanted at that point was more writing, but it set off a whole chain of people attacking him, because Joe Lieberman, in the typical lying fashion that he presents his politics, is trying to say to the citizens of Connecticut, look, I'm your guy, I've been here forever, we disagree about one little thing. Yes, you think it's bad to be in the war, and I think it's good to be in the war, but other than that, we agree on everything. Well, first of all, the war isn't one little thing. He's right that everyone in Connecticut is opposed to him, or at least every Democrat is opposed to him on the war, but what he's wrong about is that they agree with him with everything else. And by him coming out having his shield come out in the Huffington Times or Huffington Post and disagree with me on that, what it has caused is a whole little cottage industry of people taking on sections of Joe Lieberman's record and saying, well, let's look at the environment, let's look at women's rights, let's look at gay rights, let's look at censorship, and everyone's saying, this is where you don't agree with Joe Lieberman on anything. This guy is a terrible senator. He's in the pockets of big business, always has been. He gets paid off huge kickbacks from these companies whose legislation he carries and pushes and votes for, and he gets all his campaign contributions from these people. So Joe Lieberman is a really, really terrible senator, not just because of his support of George Bush on the war,